Today is Friday, October 27th. We're talking about more American involvement in the Middle East conflict, and now some U.S. troops have been hurt, and what reps for both Israel and Palestinians passionately described at an emergency session at the UN. Also, we have an update about that search for a gunman in Maine. Plus, a new Democratic candidate will go up against President Biden in the presidential primaries. What to know about the World Series kicking off tonight. And what a new poll found to be the most delightful but unexpected moments in a day. Those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The U.S. has started to fight back against Iranian-linked militias in the Middle East who have been targeting American troops. Early this morning, the U.S. carried out 2 airstrikes against facilities in Syria that are used by Iran-linked targets. It's in response to near-daily rocket and drone strikes against American troops over the last couple of weeks. Just yesterday, the U.S. Pentagon said 19 American troops based in Iraq and Syria had suffered traumatic brain injuries from those attacks. Still, the U.S. says it's being careful not to escalate the conflict in the Middle East. Also, Israel sent tanks into Gaza yesterday, saying it needed to prepare the battlefield ahead of the next stages of combat. But it's still not clear when a full-scale ground invasion is going to happen, even though Israeli officials have been hinting at it ever since Hamas fighters based out of Gaza attacked Israel on October 7th. Representatives of both Palestinians and Israel passionately argued their cases at a rare emergency special session at the United Nations yesterday. The Palestinian representative told world leaders that even as they met, Palestinian families were being killed and neighborhoods were being destroyed. And he said, quote, "The answer to the killing of Israeli civilians is not the killing of Palestinian civilians." But Israel's representative insisted in his address that Israel was not at war with the Palestinians, but with the Hamas terror group, which he compared to the Nazis and ISIS. He said the war would end immediately if Hamas handed over the hostages it took on October 7th, dropped its weapons, and fighters turned themselves in. He also rejected any calls for a ceasefire, saying Hamas would just use the time to rearm and attack again. Still, some UN officials are pushing for that ceasefire, especially since they say aid, especially fuel, is desperately needed in Gaza. And the U.S.-backed deal that was meant to get assistance into Gaza through Egypt is falling short. Officials and diplomats say part of the problem is continued airstrikes, but also Israeli inspections have apparently slowed down the process. Today, the UN will vote on that ceasefire resolution. The U.S. military is reportedly worried about confrontations that seem to keep getting worse in the Pacific. This week, a Chinese fighter jet came within 10 feet of a U.S. Air Force bomber that was flying over the South China Sea. American military officials say the Chinese pilot put both the American aircraft and their own in danger of crashing. But that wasn't the only recent incident. Both the U.S. and China released footage yesterday accusing each other of harassment and otherwise risky behavior. And of course, this is happening with the backdrop of growing tensions between the two world powers. The latest flashpoint is a dispute between China and the Philippines over control of a reef in the South China Sea. And President Biden this week said the U.S. stands by its legal commitment to defend the Philippines as an ally. China claims sovereignty over almost all of the South China Sea, and it uses its military might to maintain that sovereignty in disputed waters and beyond, including another American ally, Taiwan. Another big factor in all of this, there are very few active military communication lines still open between the U.S. and China. All that said, the Biden administration says it is still hoping to dial down the tension. Today, President Biden is getting ready to speak with the Chinese foreign minister at the White House. A multi-state manhunt is still underway as law enforcement try to find the person responsible for mass shootings in Maine. Authorities are now calling Robert Card a murder suspect, saying he opened fire at a bowling alley and then at a restaurant minutes later, killing 18 people total, including a restaurant manager who witnesses say tried to go after the gunman with a butcher knife. The shooting also left 13 others hurt, including a bowling alley worker who reportedly also risked his life to help others get away. As of this morning, hundreds of investigators and officers up and down the eastern seaboard are still looking for Card, with the help of the FBI, ATF, and U.S. Marshals. Law enforcement officers did search a home yesterday and found a note. Now they just say they're trying to figure out what it means and how it could guide the investigation. But as long as Card is still on the run, people who live near the sites of the 2 shootings are under a shelter-in-place order, meaning they're being told to lock themselves in their homes, and schools and businesses are shut down. Once again, Texas may be pitting itself against the federal government in a clash over how to respond to immigration. The Texas House and Senate have now both approved a bill to make it a state-level crime to enter Texas from Mexico between ports of entry. Or in other words, it allows local police agencies to arrest and jail unauthorized migrants, including those seeking asylum. Texas lawmakers also approved another $1.5 billion to construct barriers near the international boundary. Of course, immigration enforcement is typically reserved to the federal government, but Texas has been taking a more aggressive approach to border issues lately, and the Biden administration and Texas AG have sued each other over immigration policy already. Still, these latest measures are expected to up the ante even more, bringing an even bigger fight to court over how much authority states really have on their own borders. This Texas measure is not law just yet. Governor Greg Abbott still needs to sign the bill, but he is expected to do that soon. The U.S. economy is once again surpassing expectations, even with interest rates at a 22-year high. In fact, the latest data shows the economy expanded at a nearly 5% rate year over year in the last few months. And that's the biggest rise in nearly 2 years. Consumer spending was the main driver, as it makes up more than 2/3 of economic activity in the U.S. In the last few months, Americans spent big on things like travel, concerts, and movies. Still, the Wall Street Journal says many forecasters are predicting the pace of spending will slow down in the coming months, especially in the face of international conflicts and the possibility of a government shutdown. And it's possible interest rates could go up again. The Federal Reserve has a key meeting next week where it will decide its next move. Stay tuned for that decision. We have much more news for you still coming up, but first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Ever have that feeling like your brain is getting in its own way? Whether it's at work, or your social life, or even the ability to fall asleep, I've also had moments where I definitely wonder, what's going on here? Why am I struggling with this thing? And therapy has been a place that helps me actually answer that question and then do something about it. Sometimes we just can't see what's holding us back on our own. But in my experience, therapy helped to give me the skills I need to better understand myself, which then directly impacts the way I think and the actions I take for the better. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient and flexible, suited to fit your schedule. You just answer a few questions and quickly get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch at any time to find the best therapist for you. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. A member of Congress is now officially going after President Biden's job. Democratic Congressman Dean Phillips formally filed paperwork last night to run for president. He has actually been making the case against Biden's re-election for a while now, pointing to the president's age and polling that shows Democratic voters want an alternative. Now, Phillips says America is ready to focus on the future instead of the past. CNN reports he's being advised by a former Republican strategist who previously worked on the campaigns for former President George W. Bush and the late Senator John McCain. Still, Phillips faces an uphill battle. Biden already has the backing of the Democratic National Committee and $91 million in the bank, more than any other candidate, Democrat or Republican. Phillips is not deterred, though, and is expected to formally announce his campaign this morning in New Hampshire. Remember last month we told you about a Democratic congressman who pulled a fire alarm in the Capitol as lawmakers were trying to pass a funding bill? Congressman Jamal Bowman said it was an innocent mistake, but Republicans accused him of trying to delay the vote. Well, Bowman pleaded guilty yesterday to a criminal charge over it. He's going to have to formally apologize and pay a $1,000 fine. Otherwise, the investigation is over, and Bowman will be able to return to Congress as usual. Now, some of his Republican colleagues are still asking that he be censured and removed from committee assignments. But at this point, it's not clear if House leadership will be moving forward on that matter. Today is National Civics Day, and in celebration, a new virtual tour of the White House was launched. The Biden administration and Google teamed up to offer this free tour. It lets anyone with a computer or smartphone see all of the rooms they would have seen had they gone on an in-person tour. The tour includes historical information on each of the rooms as well, with both written and audio captions and Spanish translation. First Lady Jill Biden says she hopes teachers will use it to educate students about the White House and its history. If you want to check it out for yourself, we have added a link in today's episode notes. Baseball's biggest showdown begins tonight with Game 1 of the World Series. And this year, it's an unlikely matchup between two wildcard teams, the Arizona Diamondbacks and Texas Rangers. It's actually tough to pick who's the underdog. The Diamondbacks haven't made it to the World Series in 22 years, though the last time they made it, they also won the pennant. On the other hand, the Rangers have been to the World Series twice in the last 13 years, but they've never actually won a title. In fact, the Rangers are the oldest MLB franchise without a pennant. And the last time they were in the World Series, they were twice just one strike away from winning it all, but still lost. This time around, the Rangers are considered the favorites, but as the team knows, anything can happen in the World Series. It all kicks off tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, a quick break for our sponsor, Lumi. Lumi is the world's best whole-body deodorant. It is now my personal favorite deodorant, but if you want more proof, Lumi has it. It's clinically proven to control odor-causing bacteria everywhere for 72 hours. I love that it's aluminum-free and paraben-free, goes on easy and clear, and most importantly, has worked to keep me smelling fresh and clean. You can choose from a variety of fresh, bright scents as well, like clean tangerine, lavender sage, or toasted coconut. I even love their body wash as well as their on-the-go deodorant wipes that are great for anywhere on your body, from pits to feet and beyond. Lumi's starter pack is perfect for new customers, too. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like that mini body wash and deodorant wipes I mentioned, and free shipping. And as a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a Lumi starter pack with the code NEWSWORTHY at LumiDeodorant.com. That's LUME deodorant.com. It equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you visit LumiDeodorant.com and use the code NEWSWORTHY. Okay, now back to Feel Good Friday. A new survey has identified the happiest and most unexpected things to happen to people. And we're not talking about winning the lottery or an Oscar. These are the things that actually do happen to regular people every day. And some of them are things we can even make happen. The poll surveyed 2,000 adults, and the top answer for best unexpected moment of delight is finding money in a coat or jeans pocket. Second on the list is getting a surprise refund. And then there are the moments we can help with. Number 3 is receiving a compliment from a stranger. And number 4 is having someone let you jump in line at the supermarket. Other moments in the top 30 include being understood by someone else when you're talking, hearing from a loved one randomly that they're proud of you, and thinking it's Thursday when it's actually Friday. And keep in mind, 3/4 of people surveyed agreed that making someone else happy improves their own mood too. So with that being said, in case anyone wanted to hear it again, it's Friday. We'll be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode all about Halloween. We'll get into how the holiday first started, like when trick-or-treat became a thing, and we'll also explain this year's biggest trends, from viral decorations to the most popular costumes. And of course, we'll be back on Monday with your next news roundup. For now, thank you so much for listening and have a great weekend.